Welcome to the next episode of the Next Step podcast. Today I have on guest Brandon Maurice. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alan.
All right. So I'm pretty excited to have you on because I know that for the past couple of months or so, we always climb together, and it's always fun seeing you at the gym and just working out problems together, giving each other beta. So I'm glad to have you on.
It's been a hot sec. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna start out with the question that I ask all my guests. What is your story?
Ooh. I guess the full story, like place of birth, like upbringing, schooling, all of that stuff, or yeah.
So I kind of leave this question up to interpretation. Whatever you want to share and whatever you feel is, I guess, most important to who you are as a person today. Yeah. So it's mostly up to you.
But I guess we'll start from the beginning, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and then around like 4-ish, I moved to New Jersey. So then I was raised in New Jersey pretty much all my life, schooling from like elementary up to college, until after college, I moved out and lived in Michigan. I went to school in West Michigan, a college called Hope College. And then from there, went to school there for like 5 years, 2016 to 2021. And then I moved out here to Cali. Pretty much just did hobbies all throughout. That was like all throughout my life is gaming. Played a lot of sports, pretty much sports my whole life. I've done just about everything. And then, yeah, now after school, just moved out here to LA. Was supposed to come out here with a friend. He was like, "Hey, yo, Brandon, after graduation, if I don't want to do full-time work, I'm moving back home to pursue music. And you're coming with me?" And I was like, "I bet, say less." Like I pretty much go with the flow type of deal. So I was like, "I bet." And then I moved out here. Housing situation was all a little wonky, so it never ended up working out. We got separated, and then I've been kind of locked down here in Hollywood, LA for the past 3 years.
Awesome. Okay, so one of the questions that I was gonna ask you later on, but I guess like it's more appropriate to ask now. So was the main motivation for you moving out to LA from the East Coast to join your friends?
Yeah, technically, as it was like, it wasn't really like, it never really crossed my mind as like, "Hey, yo, I want to like move over here." Like it was a plan to come here. It was more just like last minute, like, "Hey, yo, I'm making the move. You coming with me?" And I was like, "All right, I guess so."
Wow.
I never really like put like too much thought into it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it was very like a spur of the moment kind of decision.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Is that generally how you approach most things in your life? It's like if there's an opportunity, you'll take it rather than like taking a step back and like considering all of your options and weighing all the pros and cons.
It depends on the situation that arises, but it's like it's pretty calculated in terms of how I deal with things. And in that case, it was like I kind of need, or in my head, I was like, yeah, I kind of need like a change of environment. And I never was one of those people where like I wanted to stay back in Jersey. It's like in high school and all throughout schooling, pretty much like all of my friends, like their parents were like, "Oh, we grew up in like Jersey. We grew up in like this town," and like they've been there their whole life. And I was like, never wanted to like do that. I wanted to like explore and like actually like live outside of the state for like an extended period of time. So it was more so just like after school, it was either I was going to stay in Michigan or go somewhere else. My plan was never really to go back home. So when that popped up, it was like, all right, bet I'll make it work. And I always am like, it always tends to work out in the end type of deal. So if it seems like kind of crappy or kind of shitty in the beginning, then it's like, all right, then I mean, it sucks now, but it's probably going to work out in the end. So, and that's kind of how it happened. So,
yeah, I think that's a really good mentality and outlook to approach life with. Is like sure, things may be tough right now, but in the end, it'll work out. Like,
yeah.
I full-heartedly agree with that. I think that's a great way to approach life.
Yeah, I mean, it can be messy because it's like you also got to be responsible with your choices. Like you can't just like say it, screw it, and like do something really wild without like any consideration of how it'll turn out. But yeah, in most cases, I feel like things tend to align correctly. So as long as like you're being pretty responsible in your choices, then it should be fine.
When do you feel like you had the notion of wanting to explore outside of New Jersey? Like seeing everyone around you, was it like, is it something that you gradually developed as you grew older, or was there like a certain moment where you were like, wow, I don't really want to live like them. I want to explore more.
I think, to be honest, ever since I was little, like ever since I can remember earliest on, like I always said, like as a kid, I was like, oh, I want to move to China. Like I was like, I want to live in China. And then as I grew up, I was like, maybe not China. And then I changed to being like, I want to live in England. Like I love the accents and everything like that. And then, yeah, as I aged more, like that kind of evolved even more so into just like living outside of either the country or outside of like my hometown. Like I just want to explore and stuff like that.
Right.
And it was never really a moment like in my life where I was like, oh yeah, I see how everybody else is living. I don't want to live like that. It was just how I just want to see things. I don't want to be locked into one place.
Right. Okay. That kind of leads me into my next question is, what was your experience like on the East Coast versus the West? Like you grew up most of your life in New Jersey. And for the past like couple years you've spent in LA, how would you compare like living between the coasts?
It's hard to compare because that's like, it'd be different if I experienced living out on the East, like how I'm living now, outside of like my parents' home and stuff like that, like solely being on my own 2 feet type of deal.
Right.
So whereas compared to living in Jersey back then, it was like, I mean, it was just growing up. So I'd say it's different in the sense of, I mean, weather, one thing, community wise, it's not too much different. I mean, I've never felt like I was too culture shocked by anything living out here, or when I moved to Michigan, it was all fairly the same. Like where I lived in New Jersey, it was the suburbs, predominantly white. So all my friends, yeah, it was just like suburban living. So moving out here type, I'd like to say LA's New York with palm trees. It's not the best comparison, but it's it's the comparison I like to say. Like obviously the attitudes of people are way different.
Right.
But I've never been truly like culture shocked living out here. Uh, yeah, no, I haven't really felt like it was any truly different.
Okay.
I have 15 minutes, 20 minutes away from the beach. I lived on the shore in Jersey, so another 15, 20 minutes from the beach. My life, surprisingly, wherever I've lived, it's pretty much the same.
Always near the beach. That's always nice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I can say is if I live like don't feel like I can be landlocked. So when my friends live in Kentucky and then I visited one in Colorado and he was like, would you ever want to live out here? I was like, maybe not. There's like no ocean or anything close by. So
yeah, you need the water. You need access to that water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really key point that like comparing your living circumstances and your living situation back then when you lived on the East Coast versus now on the West Coast is very different, like very different phases of your life. So
yeah,
I can completely understand how it's difficult to compare because there's so much changing just within your life that like it's not really fair, like you said, to compare the two.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Would you ever go back to the East Coast to like raise a family?
To raise a family?
Or just
I can understand
on your own.
Yeah, I can understand moving back to where I grew up, like if I was having a family because it's the suburbs, public school system, but like the communities and neighborhoods were all like really close knit. In due time, I mean, who knows? Not sure if like that type of community is still would still be prevalent, but in the sense of how it was, like my neighborhood was like a very big neighborhood, like a whole bunch of houses, and like you can drive through the neighborhood and like get lost because and not know like exactly where you enter the neighborhood and how to get out. So it was kind of like a maze in its own sense.
Wow.
And it's like, but through all of that, like there's kids everywhere. So in that type of style, like I can definitely understand and see myself like starting a family there or like raising a family there. But
yeah,
going back at the moment, I don't think I would. My friends always tell me, they're like, "Hey, yo, Brandon, when you moving back?" And I'm like, I don't think anytime. Yeah, not anytime soon. Maybe not ever. I'm saying like after I travel abroad, then we'll see.
It might change your perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You still want more experience outside of your hometown, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In regards to the West Coast and specifically LA, a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of people refer to LA as a bubble. Like a lot of Angelinos live in a bubble. Would you say that's fair coming from the West or the East Coast? Like, do you think that we do live in a bubble?
Define bubble. When I think of a bubble, I'm thinking like culturally, but it could also mean it can be a lot of different things in terms of living in a bubble and what that means.
Right. So I kind of think of bubble as like our society, or especially within the city of LA, we're kind of very self-absorbed in what's going on only within LA, and we care little about what's going on outside.
Yeah.
So this could be, I guess, like you're right. This could be a lot of different topics. So it could be like politically, economically, culturally, socially. I guess in regards to cultural society, like, do you feel like we live in a bubble?
I don't think so. I mean, Yeah, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe, actually, maybe. Yeah. Because in that sense, it's like you're only really worried about what's like immediate to you. So worrying about what's going on like outside of your reach is not really, doesn't really make sense to like put so much energy towards like worrying about other things when it's like, oh, this is what I see every day. So because I have to see it every day, it actually affects me immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand it in that sense. Um, Culturally, probably not, because there's so many different people coming from all over that
Right.
it kind of spreads it out. And I mean, you're able to it, if anybody is like me, it's like if I see something that's interesting to me, then it's like I want to learn more about it. So it'll allow me, I'll see that and put the energy like into it and say, hey, like that's pretty cool. I want to like do some more research and deep dive on that thing that I think is dope,
Mm-hmm.
and then look outside of it. So culturally wise, probably not, because there's so much influence coming from all over the world in LA.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Like LA it's a huge mixing pot, and there's so many people coming in, like so many different cultures, like just mixing with each other. Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to the first question that I asked you. So I asked the question like, "What is your story?" And then as a follow up question to that, I wanted to ask if you can remember and describe like a specific event or a moment in your life that you really felt impacted you and made you who you are today.
Any moment really is, I'm not sure of moments, but there's a quote that I do remember. I think this is maybe like middle school, but music is like really important to me. I just love like good music, and no matter no matter what it does, is like I love finding new music, and the mood always is my mood is influenced by it. So there was back then in, I think, middle school it was, I saw a quote on this YouTube channel. It was what was it? You don't have to like all music, but you should respect all music. And although that's simple in the sense of like leaving it just to music itself, but that quote lasts for or works for pretty much a lot of different things in life. And I'd say like anything artistic or anything that somebody like spent time creating, to see it as like, it might not have been made for me, but it was made for somebody. If it wasn't made for anybody, it was made for the person who made it. So it's like, you should probably like, you don't have to like it, but don't hate on it. Respect the fact that it was made with a purpose.
Right.
And I think all throughout my life, that's a quote that's stuck with me, mainly because of the fact that all of the different types of music I listen to, I always remember it as like, yeah, like my music taste is broad and is very broad and like unique, that not a lot of people that I know of are like know the artists that I listen to or listen to the genres that I listen to. So whenever I'm like listening to it, I'm like, okay, but none of my friends know the shit that I listen to, but
yeah,
it's just the idea like, well, the music wasn't made for them. Like, but, and same thing with the music that I hear them play. It's like, I might not like it. Like modern day rap or, any of the, I guess like you could say rap recently as like an example. It's like, I ain't a fan of it at all. It does not sound good to me. But my friends love it, and I'm like, I can respect the fact that like it was made for people because there's a big fan base for it, and like just how I like my music, other people like it that way. So I respect people in their interests as well as the people who created those interests for them.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like, sure, it's not my specific taste, but whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to shit on anybody for the things that they like. It's like you like what you like. The things that I like is probably something other people would look at and be like, nah, bro, that ain't it.
Yeah, it's like I'll leave you to yours if you just leave me to mine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Have you like you mentioned that it could also be applied to like different things in life. Is there
Yeah.
Are there other things that like you specifically thought about when you like think about this quote or like apply to different fields?
Mainly artistic stuff, because it just works so well with that. And you see art everywhere in life, especially like out here in LA, like no matter what people are doing, like you see graffiti on the walls, you see how people are dressed, hairstyles that people wear. It's like, it's just, yeah. If I find it weird, it's like, okay, I could find it weird, but I'm not going to like bag on them for that style or for the art that they're producing or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with sports and stuff like that. I don't like baseball. I don't like football or anything like that. But
Same.
yeah. So it's like, it ain't for me, but it's for others. And the ones who do it, I'm like, yeah, you guys do it well. If people put enough time and effort into something that they love, then it's like, I'm not gonna hate on them for that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's something that I can probably incorporate more into my view on art, to be honest. Because sometimes I see some pieces of art and I'm like, that's very interesting. I'm kind of like doubting. I'm like, is that called art? But
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's in this today's day and age, it's whatever you want to call it, you can call it that. So like, sure. I'm not gonna hate on other people for how they see the world.
Right. Like why spread hate? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love that, actually. I love that. Okay. So we first met at the climbing gym that we both frequent, Hollywood Boys. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about climbing. So how did you first start climbing? And what do you most enjoy about the sport?
I first started, I think, my sophomore or junior year of college. One of my friends, or one of my fraternity brothers, he invited a couple of us out to a gym that was like fairly close to campus. And I went and he had been doing it for a while. And then my little was, I think, working there at the time. Oh. And we all like hopped on the wall or whatever. And like, you've gone climbing maybe at like an amusement park or something on one of like their rock climbing walls or whatever. And I always like had the fear, like I have a huge fear of heights. And it's like climbing up those walls when I was younger is like, oh, I can definitely climb to the top, but the higher I get off the ground, the scarier it gets. And then I never made it to the top because I was like, this is just scary. Right. And so yeah, like going back then, that was the first time I actually like climbed up the wall, and the wall topped off. So like you were supposed to like climb over the end of the top of the wall, and then you walk down the stairs to get back to the bottom. And that was like the first time that I was climbing, and then I made it to the top because I had all my friends around me, and I was like, I'm not gonna jump down. I'm not gonna jump down. I'm gonna like finish.
You gotta finish.
Exactly. And nah, not losing those social aura points. And so I topped out, and then I was like, this is fun. And then the more that we did it, it was tiring, and it got like, oh no, this is a workout. And my little, since he worked there, he was also like an avid climber, so he climbed a lot, and I got to see like him like go crazy, like climbing stuff that we were that all of us were looking at, was like, damn, like bro, like you strong as hell. Everybody, we're like, yo, we didn't, like, Nate, we didn't know you were that strong. And he's like, yeah, no. And ever since then, I hadn't climbed like frequently since then. I think it was like one or two other times. But then after college, when I moved out here, one of my coworkers at the time, she climbed a bunch at Hollywood. And she told me about it and invited me over for a sesh. And then since then, I was pretty much like, yeah, that's like the hobby to do for me to do out here. And I think I just like it a lot because I know I'm athletic. And at the time, I was like not really putting much work into training or anything like that. But I remember campusing the UFO section, and I was like, at least I can still do this. Like I still got the upper body strength to do this. And then as I see, like you see yourself improve and like in the sense of like doing crimps or working a lot with like fingertip climbs, where I started, it's like, oh, I can, like, you can touch it and then just fall off. Like you don't have the strength for it at all. And then after like a month or so of doing it, you notice like immediately like, oh, wow, I can like hold on to these things to these holds that were terrible at the start. Seeing that progression that quickly was something that really, I think, locked me into it.
Okay. So you mentioned that before, like previously, you had a fear of heights. Is that something that you overcame as a result of climbing, or is that something you still just deal with?
I think it's definitely something I still deal with. I don't think I overcame it at all, but I think it evolved into two different things. Over the years, I've learned that it's not so much a fear of heights. It's so much like the like your intrusive thoughts of being in a high place and being like, oh, what if this happened? Or what if I just like slipped and fell? Or what if I just jumped? Like having those intrusive thoughts of like, hey, yo, but like if you did do that. Yeah. So like climbing helped in the sense of like, if I'm in a situation where I'm high up and I'm like doing something like that, having faith in like my own ability to carry myself through it. That's probably what's changed it. So as well as maybe being in high places without control, but I think that doesn't really make sense because I'm totally fine flying planes. But I think one other like connection to that, when I went to Denver with my friend, we hiked up a mountain and like we made it to the top of the mountain or whatever. And then it looks across everything. And it's like, if you walk further on the rock, it's just the cliff and it just drops. And it's like, there's no guardrails or anything, because it's just like a hiking trail. And it's just the idea of like, if you go to the edge of it, then you're like, oh, what if I did? What if I didn't? Like, what if I slipped? What if something happened? So I think it's just the intrusive thoughts that's the most scary thing, rather than the fear of heights. But if somebody asked me to go skydiving or bungee jumping, I'd probably say no.
So nowadays, rather than, or you still have the same intrusive thoughts, right? It's just less intrusive, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, I think more so. Yeah, maybe less intrusive. More so if I'm in control, then it's like, then it's probably not as bad. Mm-hmm. Whereas, yeah, maybe if I'm in control, then it's not as bad. If it's something that I'm actively doing, that activity that includes there being a height, like heights involved in it, then it's not bad. But if it's like something, the heights are just like a side effect of being where I'm at, then it might still be a problem.
It's like, yeah, it's very. And I still get fear. Go for it.
Or no, yeah, I still get the fear. Like, say I'm in like the 11th story of a building and I walk to the window, it's still scary. I'm still like, nah, I'd rather not be next to that window.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like voluntarily signing up for something, like and actively pursuing it, versus it's like you said, like a byproduct of just where you're at, like
exactly,
like a tall building. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that a lot of climbers, this especially pertains to girls. A lot of girls, like when they first start climbing, I see that they're able to reach the top, but they're scared because scared of heights.
Yeah.
If you could give like one piece of advice to maybe deal with that fear, what would that be?
I'd say it comes with like trusting your body. That's how I feel about it mostly. It's like if you have enough faith in your like body to be able to do it and like get there, then you'll be okay. Like knowing what you're able knowing like how capable your body is probably the most probably the best solution to dealing with that problem.
Okay. And would you say that confidence comes from just climbing more or like building strength? Like what would it mostly come from?
It definitely comes from experience, but I think it's the first step of like once you have like if I can recall, maybe to probably one of the points where I noticed it was early on when I was climbing. And I was doing it wasn't a sketchy route, but looking back, it was sketchy to me because I was still fresh with climbing. So doing it, I was like, I would go up to the wall and I'd like make it to the top. And the last move was kind of like a Hail Mary throw. And it's like, if you catch it, you're thinking in your head, you're like, oh, what if it's not good? Or what if like I can't really like lock into it or anything? But the time that I like just said screw it and I just sent it and I caught it, I was like, oh, okay, it's good. And like I thought I was winded, but I snagged this last hold and I definitely have enough strength in me to like hold on to it. It's not like I was going to grab it and then just slip out. So just being confident in like what your body can do, as well as maybe just taking one fall from the top of the wall as well to be to like be like, okay, falling wasn't that bad.
Yeah, you're right. It's like I think a lot of people are scared to just fall, but like it's so safe, like with the mats, and all the cushioning, and even with the walls, like it's not as high as you think it is.
So exactly.
If you just fall properly, like if you just know to tuck in, like don't land on your head or your arms, like you're perfectly fine.
Feet first and roll to your back.
Right. Yeah. But some people just they're scared to just experience that, and so I feel like it holds them back so much from like making committal moves and like just being able to push harder.
Yeah. It just takes time. Like you got to build confidence, and like confidence comes with time. Like being able to be more comfortable in uncomfortable situations is pretty much what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned before you like avidly started climbing, you didn't really do much like training.
No.
Has that changed?
Not since I lived out here.
Okay. So there still isn't much training like involved. It's mostly just climbing.
Yeah, it depends on the mood, to be honest. Like a lot of my physical activity comes with just how motivated I am to like put the time in. I'd say earlier in the year and then in the latter half of last year, like I was very motivated to lift. I don't know why, but it was just like I had like the moment in my head where I was like, like I kind of just want to lift right now. And then I'd go to the gym and like I'd see people climbing and I'd be like, before if I saw people climbing, I'd be like, maybe I'll screw the lift and like just go straight to climbing. But at that moment, for like those couple months, I was like, no, I'm just like purely lifting right now. And yeah, I don't know what it is, but I think it's just motivation and maybe and like cutting out laziness in a sense, like how you do chores or not chores, but like you have your dishes in the sink and you're like, I got to get those dishes done. And then like, it's kind of out of that pull for responsibility. Like I just got to do them and get them done type of deal.
Yeah.
That was kind of what it was.
Oh, okay. It kind of sounds like your body has like a natural training schedule. Like
yeah, maybe.
it's kind of interesting. Has that happened previously? Like you had like a period where you just wanted to lift and
maybe when I maybe like the year after I first moved out here, but never really like as I was growing up, not like doing sports all throughout schooling. Even in college is when I technically started lifting, and I didn't even want to lift then. It was always just like, I don't feel like I need to. And then I think back when I boxed, my coach had told me, he was like you can lift or whatever, do lifting, but it also makes you tight. Like it makes your muscles and everything tight, which I feel like isn't truly the case if you're doing it correctly. Mm-hmm. But that was always something that like lingered in my head of like, oh, if I start lifting or stuff like that, then I won't be as like fluid with my motion or I won't be as flexible or anything like that. Mm. So I just never did. And then once I moved out here, my friend who I was supposed to move with, he started doing a lot more or he was doing a lot of training and started like becoming a gym trainer and stuff like that. So he was like, hey, let me build you like a workout plan or stuff like that. And that's kind of when I started actively doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting that your coach said, well, it kind of like it anecdotally makes sense that the more you lift, the tighter your body becomes.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that way?
After having done it, not really. I think it's more so because it was boxing. Like you kind of need like those quick movements in the to like be able to snap with your punches and stuff like that. And if you have like too much muscle, then like your movement is kind of slowed down. I'm not sure how I'm not sure how like much that actually makes a difference, but that was kind of one of those things where it was just like stuck in my head like, no, I don't want to lift weights. Yeah,
that's interesting. That's because it's the first time I heard it, but I also feel like if I did hear that from like a coach, like I'd probably think that it's true, to like some extent. It's very interesting. I think I'll do some research on that and see to what extent that is true.
Yeah, I mean it's probably not too bad if you do incorporate your stretchers. Wow, yeah. Stretching correctly and stuff like that. Yeah, it'll probably be fine, to be honest. I mean, I've seen some super like jacked bodybuilders doing some wild moves that are like you'd think only gymnasts should be able to do. So yeah,
it varies huge, like depending on the person and like level of flexibility as well.
Yeah.
I feel like flexibility is also so underappreciated in climbing as well.
Oh, for sure it is.
Like
I'll say it time.
yeah, like I feel like I see some people like struggling on the climb, and it's literally just because they can't stretch far enough to reach something or put their foot on something. And it's like, damn, just that little bit, you know?
It goes such a long way. Yeah. I mean, I say it all the time with the fact that like we have the yoga classes that are held at the gym, and I'm like, there's yoga, and every single time I hop on the wall, and I'm like, there's one move where I throw a leg up, and I'm like, I'm pushing it a little bit. I'm like, yeah, yoga would make a difference, but I never do it.
Yeah, no, those yoga classes are pretty cool, but sometimes just the timing is just like it's so off.
No, it's definitely if I'm going to go to one, I'd have to like mentally be ready, be like, yeah, I'm going in for this purpose, like for the sole purpose of going to the class. Whereas when I'm already at the gym and I hear the announcement made for it, I'm like, I'm not in a yoga mindset.
Yeah, you just want to climb and pull hard.
Exactly. Yeah. But outside of that, like in terms of training or working out, I'd say one of my biggest motivations for it would be having like after high school, I was 152 pounds pretty much after high school and all throughout college. Like I never weighed like over or like went too crazy over 155 or 152. And like if I was like a couple pounds over, then I could always like, I'd say like my 4-pounder, like 8-pound tune up where I'd like work out, do a whole bunch of cardio, like fix my eating and whatever, and then like hop back down to 152 and be like, all right, we're good. I'm back to the base level. But then since having like started lifting at the time and then like adding my diet into like having a lot more protein and stuff like that, that dream is I don't think that dream is achievable now because I learned that, or I remember that muscle is like much heavier than fat or whatever. So like once I put on all that muscle, now my walking around weight is like 160. And I'm like, damn, I see that. Like if I weigh myself, I'm like, damn, I want to go back to 152. And I'm like, I could, but that requires losing muscle. It's not like it's fat or anything. So, but that was probably the biggest motivation is like, okay, yeah, I'm going to like work out because I want to go back to like I want to level things out type of deal.
Yeah. I feel like where you're at right now is like, you have a really good physique and I don't feel like you really need to cut or like lose any weight, especially because like you said, it's mostly muscle that you'd be losing. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think you have a lot of excess fat like at all.
No, I was talking to my housemate about it not too long ago. And he was like, what body fat would you say you are? And I was like, I don't know. I think like 15-ish, somewhere in that range. And he was like, no, cause I mean, it's just like, you see the image on the internet and it's like 8% body fat, like 12%, 15. And it's like showing the figure of the guy and whatever. And like what you can see. And like in comparison to that of what I see in the mirror, I was like, yeah, I seem like I'm like around 15%, because it's not my body's defined when I'm doing activity. It's not defined when I'm like just standing, like chilling or anything like that. So I felt like I fit in the 15 because I still have features that are there, but they're only there if I'm like actively flexing or stuff like that.
Like if you're pumped.
Yeah.
Okay. I would guess that you're near like 10% or under, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. Like that's my initial guess.
I mean, maybe I possibly could. I do want to like check one day, but yeah, because I hadn't been under 10% since high school, since wrestling in high school.
Okay. Yeah, I think body fat percentage is a pretty interesting like statistic just to like recognize where you're at.
Yeah. That whole scale is very interesting because it's like you see it and it's like for the age range, it's like what weight you should be. And it's like, oh, if you're this weight at this age or at this height or whatever, then it's like, oh, you're like how the scale goes from like underweight to like obese is very abrupt. I feel like it's like, oh, you're like 5'6", but you're 60 or 70 pounds. You're obese, and I'm like, bro, people don't look. I know a couple of people like that, and they're definitely not obese.
It's like, I don't know about these numbers.
Yeah, exactly. They just the math isn't mathing.
Yeah. Okay. Next, I want to ask you, what is something that you're currently learning?
Currently learning, say languages. I went to school for computer science, but then I minored in Japanese. So my Japanese since college has been abysmal. It's been absolutely terrible because I barely ever use it. And then since I'm traveling abroad, even before like purchasing the ticket, I around like last year or a year and a half ago, I started like slowly trying to like keep up on it and clean it up so then I can be like back to conversational level or for Japanese language proficiency. It starts, the JLPT is a 5, as like the 5 is the easiest test and then the 1 is the hardest. And like I want to be back to where I was, which is around like the 3, which is like very conversational, a lot of vocabulary and grammar that I have under my belt. So I'm trying to relearn that again. And then I was learning Korean a whole bunch last year. And then recently, after we had gone like surfing, after that day, I was like, damn, I was like, I need to like hop back on my Korean because it's absolutely terrible. Because when you guys were speaking it, it's like I can pick up on like 1 or 2 words in a conversation, but it was, I couldn't follow the conversation at all. And I was like, yeah, I want to be able to at least like have elementary level just at like this moment within the next like year or two. So then I can like, I don't know. A lot of the music that I listen to is Korean. So it's like, I don't know what they're saying, but it sounds good. Yeah, but I do want to know I want to know what the lyrics mean.
Right.
So I'd say those two. Yeah, I'm pretty much just learning languages at the moment.
Okay. That's pretty cool. The good thing is that Japanese and Korean are somewhat similar.
Yeah.
There are like similar characteristics within the languages, and they share some words that are like
there's
the same.
There's a lot of words that I've noticed, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the same. This in Japanese are like very, very similar. So that's made it a lot easier in a sense. But obviously there's a lot of words in the language, so not everything is so similar.
Yeah. No, I'm actually on the same path of like trying to learn Korean and get better and more proficient in speaking Korean fluently. But it is a journey. Like you gotta really grind away at it. And like you gotta like really like just focus and just, because it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, learning languages now is just like I'm now in the sense of like our age. Obviously, like when you're a kid, like your brain is a sponge, so you're able to soak everything in. But now it's like you have to break all of the rules that you know from like your native language in order to learn something else.
Right.
And it's no, it takes time and effort to do, as most things in life. But
yeah,
I mean, as long as you're having fun with it, or as long as you're having fun and you're like actively interested and involved in it, then I think it's okay.
Yeah, and I think it's very rewarding, right?
Oh, for sure,
like,
for
it's
sure.
probably like one of the most rewarding things you can do. Like,
Yeah,
like it opens up a whole nother set of people, culture, like everything that you can just involve yourself in.
Yeah,
And it just opens up
yep.
a whole new world.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
No, I know. My one of my housemates, he's very like big on keeping up with like AI and everything like that. And he's like, he asked me about it because I do tech, and he's like, "Oh, what are your thoughts on like AI and stuff like that?" And he's like, "Do you think you'd want to learn a language if you can just ask the thing or like have it automatically translate the conversations for you, something like that?" And I'm like, to be honest, I feel like, yeah, I'd still want to learn it because I'd feel more accomplished learning it and being able to speak the tongue rather than having it spoken through some like a different medium.
Right.
Like it's just a lot more rewarding that way. And you're able to connect with people a lot better.
Yeah. It's completely different. Like using a translation service versus being able to speak it from yourself. It's night and day, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Last one or two questions before we end off here. What is something that you're currently struggling with?
Struggling. I don't know. There's a lot and not a lot, I guess you could say. Like I worry or I don't want to answer it. I mean, could I take like 3 seconds to think?
Yeah.
All right, bet. All right. I think I'd say struggling with in the sense of where I see myself in terms of where I'd want to be to, I guess, claim, not claim, where I'd want to be to think that like I'd be content. So, in terms of the steps that I take or that I feel like it would take me to reach a point where I'm like content, it'd be like locking down or a position in the field of work that I want to be in. That would be step one. Then step two is acquiring like a car or mode of transportation. That would open up my ability to do a whole bunch of things like not just climbing in the sense of like, oh, I can go outdoor climbing, go to like all of these different outdoor parks, but I'd be able to go to the beach more often. I just have a lot more freedom with like the places that I can go. And then having a home or having a place to go back to in the sense of like that'd be my own. And because we're with my living situation right now, it's communal. So I always am like, oh, I want to have my own place because then you can have friends over. You can do all of these different things. You don't have to worry about everybody else that you're living with. So I'd say those three things are probably what I feel are important to me in order to be content. And I guess the struggle in that is acquiring those three things that would allow me to be that way. That would be one. And then to add another thing onto that is because that involves how I feel mentally as well. So it's like if not having those things, it's obviously not the end of the world. Like, I mean, I'm doing pretty okay without them. But those things are, think, important to me in a sense of like, I feel like I can't truly be uh happy, or like, yeah, you could say happy. Can't truly be happy. Or feel like I deserve to like actually be like, oh, I'm good. Like I'm chilling. Like I'm like able to like vibe and like take a breather. Uh, I feel like without those, my brain is like, okay, well, you can't really enjoy this because you haven't done these things yet.
Right.
So no matter what I'm doing, it's like, oh, like this is fun, like I'm having a good time. But then in the back of my head, it's like, yeah, but do you deserve to be having this good time right now? Because you're not like, you're not good, I guess.
Like,
so I'd say that's probably it.
Okay. What are you doing to fulfill those three things that would make you content? Like what would be the very first thing that would propel you towards those goals?
The very first thing, I mean, if you break it down from those three, like the first one being job, obviously better income, having the job in my field, and then that opens up those things to being acquired in a much more reasonable time. But then you break down getting that job into, well, what am I doing in order to get it? In terms of applying to those places right now, or for it being tech, it being a web developer or full stack developer, it is, the tech industry ain't doing too good.
Yeah.
The tech industry is a little struggling right now. So it's a buyer's market for companies. And next to that, like me being an applicant, I'm also an applicant versing like thousands, in the sense of like, it's not just local area, it's across the country or across like different countries as well.
Right.
So it's not very easy. So how do I make myself look better as an applicant? Put the time into coding, put the time into creating like smaller projects, so then I can have, or finding like freelance clients, which I've done, to make myself look a lot better as a hireable asset to a company. So doing those is like what would, those small steps create step one, or resolve step one. And then step one gets me car, gets me place, and then gets me where in a content place where I'm like, okay, I've done these things. I'm like, good. I've done technically what I feel like I needed to do. So, yeah.
So the other problems are resolved, or would be resolved, as a result of the first problem.
I'd say, yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily like, oh, those like that the first problem needs to be done in order to get everything else out the way. It's like, oh, I can go out and get a car right now. But I'm like, that's the back to the start of the conversation. Are like, is it the responsible thing to do? And it's like, it's probably not, because it's like, okay, I can have the car, but then now you have bills tacked onto the car. You have all of those different things. And it's like, I can do it, I just wouldn't be, it'd make everything that much harder to do if it's not done in the consecutive order that I feel like it needs to be done.
Right.
Yeah. And then same thing with getting place. It's like, can technically get a place, but then the place's bills are in a certain place where, okay, I'm going to be doing all of these different things. It would add unnecessary stress.
Right.
It seems like the least stress-free way of doing things would be in the order that I have it set out as.
Yeah. It's like it's possible. It's just not it's not feasibly, or it's just not economically responsible.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I can share one thing,
Mm-hmm.
like right now, a lot of people in our generation are having a hard time
Mm-hmm.
like stabilizing themselves, I guess. Like
Yeah.
figuring out like getting a good job, like um or saving up enough money to get their own place.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of my friends I see as well are in the same position.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I'm in the same position as well. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
also trying to like move out of my. I'm trying to transition from my current job, trying to look for
Mm-hmm.
better opportunities. Um, but I think this kind of goes back to the the mentality that we talked about in the beginning. It's like
Mm-hmm.
things will work out. Like
Yeah.
it'll get better. It might suck right now, and
Yeah.
it does at times, but it'll get better. Like it'll resolve
Mm-hmm.
itself. We just gotta keep going day by day and
Mm-hmm.
try and enjoy the time that we're experiencing right now, right?
Yeah.
Because something else I also think about is like our youth is it's not forever
Fleeting.
lasting, right? It's not
Youth
forever
is
lasting.
fleeting.
Yeah, youth is fleeting. Youth is fleeting. So yeah, I think it's hard though. It's hard for sure.
Yeah.
It's hard for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I think about it in that sense. I mean, it could just be, I mean, yeah, like our time of life right now. I mean, technically, what everybody says who's gone through it is, yeah, your 20s is supposed to kind of suck. It's supposed to be like, oh, you're kind of trying to figure out what the hell you're supposed to do or want to do.
yeah,
So, and it seems like, I mean, that is the case for the generations beforehand as well.
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, looking at it from the big picture, that is just kind of that part of life that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just in
But it
that
sucks.
phase. Yeah, it sucks, but yeah. I mean, we're here though. We just gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Take it day by day type of deal.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you'd like to ask me? Any questions or anything that you'd like to leave off on for the audience?
Mm. Um Not really. I mean, how you been? How are you doing mentally? How are you doing with the endeavors finding new work, all of that stuff? Trying to
Um
transition.
so it's been kind of hard.
Yeah.
Like the job market just overall isn't in good shape right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I also find that I'm not exactly the best positioned for the jobs that I'm applying to. I'm
Mm-hmm.
mostly looking at like analyst, business analyst, or consulting jobs, and these are like
Mm-hmm.
very entry level jobs, right? But
Yeah.
a lot of companies that are hiring for these positions are looking for current college graduates, so like seniors that are
Mm-hmm.
graduating next year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've also heard that um that applying and like getting a job is it's kind of just a numbers game. Like you have to
Yeah.
just send like applications like every day and
Yep.
stuff, and just like you'll rarely hear back and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's been tough, but
I mean, are you sticking to do you feel like you need to stick towards the position you're looking for, or are you open to like looking for something within that general area. What is it? No, you're looking for things that like you fit the requirement, like what you have, like you're the perfect requirements, or you fit those requirements for that position. Do you feel like you need to stick towards that, or would you be open to be like, oh, okay, there's this position that requires more experience or more of something that I don't really have or know truly what to do? So are you avoiding those, or are you just like, nah, I'll also apply for those and then learn while you're doing it type of deal?
So I was actually kind of trying to transition. I was trying to shift out of the work I'm currently doing. Because right now I work at a nonprofit. But I'm trying to transition into for-profit, like private sector, like business, like private businesses. So I'm currently applying for jobs where I don't have like work experience in. I just have educational backgrounds from college. So I'm doing that, but I think you're right. I think I should also start looking to roles that I guess kind of align with what I'm doing right now, kind of because I'm also building that work experience, and like it's like applicable to other positions as well. Yeah. But
I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it the way you're doing it. That's technically how I am doing it, because it's like I'll be applying for positions where it's like, okay, I know the general main requirements behind it, but there's a lot of different technologies that are being used that I've never touched, and it's like they require, in a sense, for you to know how to use them or whatever. But a lot of it is also just like, if you show that you're willing to learn, or like that you're open to taking in new information, then you should be fine. Like, you just got to put the legwork in, being like, okay, we hired you for the position that you said you can do. And it's like, if you don't know how to do it, you better find out quick how to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any problem with doing it that way either.
Yeah.
If anything, I probably would prefer, or in my case, I prefer that I do it that way. That way I can learn something else, or be forced to learn something else, rather than being kind of stagnant.
That's for sure. Yeah. One of the things I really want in like any type of position, any job, is learning. It's like the ability or the possibility of learning new information and just kind of like developing work skills, and basically just anything that will help me grow as a person, right?
Yeah.
I think that's so important. Like, we need to be lifelong learners, you know?
Yeah. I mean, once you stop learning, like things get real at least for me, things get real boring real quick.
Yeah. I heard this quote once: you're either growing or you're dying.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Right? There's no stagnation. There's no like staying in the same place. Which is kind of why a lot of companies push for growth, because if they don't grow, they die.
Yeah. In terms of companies, I feel like that, or I'm looking at it from how I see like the gaming community going right now, because that's a lot of the motto that companies have in the gaming community. And it's like, oh, we're not growing, so things aren't doing well. Our investors are getting a little mad because we're not pulling in numbers. Let's keep shilling these people for pennies and stuff like that. And everybody's like, nah, we're not, we ain't about it no more. Like, you're gonna make us pay for this too. Like, nah. So in terms of individuals, that's very much true. Like, to continue learning, but at some point it can be, for corporations, it can be a little too much. It can be a little too much once Netflix starts making you pay to stop seeing ads now too.
That's gonna be crazy. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Good convo. Good convo.